Present, leave. Michael and Sarah are coming back to their hometown for the birth of their child. My mother-in-law's icy tone cut through the air, sending a shiver down my spine. Her expression was as cold as her words. In just 3 days, her eldest son and his wife were expecting their baby, and apparently, my presence was no longer welcome. Me? Leave? I stammered, completely stunned and unable to believe what I had just heard. Yes, she replied curtly, her gaze unwavering. We no longer require a mother figure here. It's been a long time since you were needed. Her next words pierced through me like a blade. Make sure you're out by tomorrow, because Michael and his family will be moving in. From the moment I got married, I had always known I would never truly be accepted into this family. Yet, despite the constant cold shoulders, I had never imagined they would outright tell me to leave. You were given the chance to experience raising a child, you barren failure, she sneered, her voice dripping with disdain. Show some gratitude. We owe you nothing anymore. Her words echoed in my mind, each one heavier than the last. Simon seems to be sick of you as well. Simon, what are you doing? I swallowed my saliva. I no longer have to stand in ceremony with my spouse if there isn't a plot between Michael and my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law started this, but it was foolish of her to push me away. I don't care what happens to this house now. May they confront head-on the reality they have chosen to ignore. I am 45-year-old Anna Thompson, and I live near the station in a well-liked neighborhood with my husband and mother-in-law. Excellent access is provided to the city center. My finicky husband, who was recently promoted to a managerial job, insisted on a large apartment when we were looking for a place to live. Although the rent was high, the rooms and space were well worth the expense. I met my ex-husband Simon through a friend. He is 8 years my senior. After 2 years of dating, we made the decision to be married because of the comforting warmth that comes with an older man. His love remained unwavering, even after I informed him of my infertility as a result of a previous sickness. My emotions also didn't change when I found out about the situation he was carrying. From his former marriage, my husband had a son named Michael. I really apologize for asking you to live with my parents and son, even if you have never been married. I will spare you pain. I'll make sure you're content. That was what he promised me. My husband recommended that I move to a large apartment where I could have my own room in order to keep me from feeling smothered. With my mother around, Michael, who turns 10 this year, won't require much care. It is not necessary for you to exert yourself. My husband's parents provided him with in-home childcare assistance following his divorce. Simon's mother appears to have taken over as Michael's caregiver after his father died in an accident a few years later. Michael refused to look me in the eye from the first time we met. I didn't worry because I assumed it might be his timid personality as he approached a challenging age. I was happy as long as they let me live in the house with them. My mother-in-law had a polished and quiet demeanor. She was so courteous to me when I went to introduce myself after our engagement that I assumed we would get along well enough to live together. I'll keep cooking the meals the way I have. Anna, you don't mind if we eat at various times since Simon gets home late. I'll let you do the laundry and housekeeping. Okay, let's collaborate effectively. Due to the distribution of family tasks after marriage, I went from working full-time at the pharmacy to working part-time. I wouldn't come home until about 8 o'clock in the evening because I started work a little later in the morning. I felt comfortable about living with them because dinner was always ready when I got there. I was always eating by myself because my mother-in-law and Michael typically finished their supper before I did. Although I eventually realized that this was our family's style, I still occasionally felt like this after getting married. My mother-in-law didn't think of me as a member of the family and didn't like me from the start. Michael, you do realize that the school's activity day is before summer. What time is it? All of us will see you. I attempted to make friends with Michael after we got married, but he hadn't warmed up to me yet. My mother-in-law interrupted Michael when he faltered, saying, We'll go there, Simon and I alone. You don't have to worry about it, Anna. I thought she was merely being considerate, but I misinterpreted her comments. I can take today off from work. All of us should go together. You're not in need of that. Simon's wife is you, and Simon and I have always been mix-only family. I was a little No, I was very shocked. When I mentioned it to my spouse at night, Mom has been holding on to Michael, he said. It's likely that she believes you're attempting to remove him. I will ultimately speak with her. Although Michael and I hardly ever spent time together outside of school functions, I started to participate in the activity day as a mother. Michael occasionally seemed to want to say something, but my mother-in-law would constantly Later on, I discovered that she had been disparaging me to Michael. Anna claimed that without Michael, she might be content with Simon. She is a horrible individual. She must also be tricking Dad. It wouldn't be odd for a young youngster to be suspicious of me if he heard such things. Although it was a horrifying tale, I didn't think my mother-in-law was capable of doing that at the time. Michael left home as soon as he graduated from high school and moved in with his girlfriend. He married her without a ceremony a year after he began working and as soon as he entered college. Surprisingly, my mother-in-law completely ceased doing chores after Michael moved out. Rather, it appeared that she now only found amusement in making fun of me. She used to cook, but now she just waits for me to get home while sitting at the dining table. I would stand in the kitchen and make dinner without pausing to sit down. You're incredibly ineffective. It will take you all night at this rate. Because I had always depended on my mother-in-law to make the meals, I was never very adept at cooking. She often complained that the food tasted terrible after tasting every meal I made. I apologize. I'm doing my best. You have a remarkable lack of taste awareness, Anna. Michael was fortunate not to have to eat this. How awful. She might as well cook it herself if that's what she thought. But it seemed like she was simply complaining to me about everything, including the laundry and cleaning that I never did. Why does the laundry have so many wrinkles? Vacuuming every nook and cranny is essential. Nothing you do is really right. Did you not learn anything from your family? My mother-in-law looked at me being denigrated and moaned. I tightened my fists in irritation, even concerning my family. I'm not sure how you managed to win Simon over, considering you don't seem like a very attractive woman. And she usually ended with the same statement. Michael wouldn't have left if you hadn't come. I realized that Michael's departure had left a huge hole in her heart. It might have been empty nest syndrome. I promised myself to put up with it if she felt better after venting to me. But after a particular incident, her bullying gained fresh vigor. That occasion was Michael's wife Sarah's pregnancy announcement. There was a delight about my mother-in-law that I had never witnessed before. It is a child of Michael. It will undoubtedly be cute. He will be my first grandson indeed. I was also pleased to see the two of them celebrating. However, my mother-in-law was ecstatic beyond belief, most likely as a result of Michael asking her if Sarah may stay at your house with our kid. By plane, Sarah's family's house is 1 hour distant. They came to us for assistance because they have no one else to turn to here. Naturally, my mother-in-law would never consider refusing Michael's request. The frequency of Michael's phone calls increased, and she became quite excited. After hearing the news, she eagerly began preparing the following day. She seemed to have great-grandson fever, from organizing Michael's room to compiling a list of baby necessities and getting the bedding ready. I had to get involved, of course. Anna, I vacuumed Michael's room after I got home from work. Therefore, you must clean the windows and floors and, if possible, wax them as well. We're heading to the department store this weekend to check for baby cribs. It was difficult to clean and wax at night, especially after a demanding workday. I would be told to start over if I even considered taking shortcuts. In addition, my mother-in-law began requesting money. Before I knew it, there was an abundance of baby items in the house. Tomorrow, Anna, I need you to take out some cash. I want to prepare certain things for the baby once more. Given that Sarah and Michael haven't even arrived, isn't it unnecessary to make so many preparations? Shouldn't we wait and make our decision together? The constant spending bothered me, but I had wanted to comply with my mother-in-law's demands. I talked all day over. How come you're so icy? It's a grandchild of Simon. Yes, exactly. Michael is not your biological relative. You're indifferent, aren't you? That is untrue. Don't say that, please. I simply believe that Sarah might prefer to choose items on her own. At what point would you like to make decisions for your own child? Maybe because I had something to say. My mother-in-law gave me a stern look. I realized right away that I had overreached myself, but it was too late. My mother-in-law returned to her room, looking distressed, but she said nothing. I gave it some thought, but I was also taken aback by the way Michael was discussed. My mother-in-law remained in her room the following morning, possibly still upset. Simon simply shouted, "I'm leaving," through her door because he had a 3-day business trip beginning that day. Don't put a dampener on Mom's great-grandchild enthusiasm, please. Since Michael's departure, she has changed. I take it you are also concerned? Yes, I was. But when Michael and Sarah come, we won't have any money left over if we spend it all this way, right? Simon's expression instantly became nasty. Do you think I make too little money? Simon, I'm not saying that at all, simply responded, "Okay," and walked away with a disgruntled expression. This is how money conversations always turn out. I can't help but plan ahead because I'm in charge of our money. There's a reason behind that, of course. We've been wed for 13 years. I have a really good life thanks to Simon. You should enjoy your part-time income. That's what Simon had always told me. I kept whatever I didn't need for myself. Although it is in my name, I think of it as our joint property. Simon's pay has decreased to 2/3 of what it was when we first got married during the past 5 years, due to a reduction in his company's performance. He doesn't appear to be thinking about changing careers, even though it's unclear if his company will survive till he retires. It was impossible for my husband to relinquish his position as department head for appearances before my mother-in-law. These days, he pays for living expenses and I pay the rent. To keep my husband's face intact, we haven't told my mother-in-law about this. I apologized to my mother-in-law that day by leaving work a little early. She was waiting for me at the dining table when I arrived home. I apologized for yesterday. I might have overreached myself, I acknowledged. However, my mother-in-law said nothing. Rather, she caught me off guard with shocking information. Michael and Sarah are going back to give birth in their hometown. Please leave. As my mother-in-law said coldly, in 3 days, the oldest son and his spouse were scheduled to arrive. Stunned and confused, I said, "I must go. We no longer require another mother figure," she confirmed. "You've been obsolete for some time. This is where Michael and his family will reside. Ensure that you leave by tomorrow." I was struck with the realization. Since the day I was married, I had never felt like I belonged in the family. People had always viewed me as an outsider. It was evident from the news of Michael's return for the delivery. "You are a barren failure. You were given the opportunity to experience being a parent," my mother-in-law went on. "Show gratitude. We are no longer obligated to help you. Simon seems to be sick of you as well. By now he might be getting along well with a new girlfriend." I gulped down my saliva in shock. I'm thinking about how my connection with my husband might become more strained. Could I have fallen into a trap here? I believed my hubby would never. I recalled that he had never gone on an overnight business trip until a year ago. I said, "Okay, I'll go out to eat tonight," picked up my suitcase, and left the house to go for a wander. My heart was so rattled that I had to calm it. Despite my mother-in-law's advice, I attempted to call my husband's cell phone since I was worried about him. No matter how many times I called, he didn't pick up, even though I still wanted to talk to him. When I called his office, I discovered that he had taken a few days off. My mother-in-law's statement started to seem more accurate. Is he actually traveling with another woman? My mind was filled with dark ideas, and I was overcome with emotion, tears running down my cheeks. As I staggered on, I caught sight of the tavern beyond the station, which we used to visit when we first came here. As I walked in, I thought, "It's still here." Greetings. When the tavern owner saw me, his face momentarily clouded. Then he acknowledged with a nod. "Hello, it's been a while." "About 8 years have passed. I mentioned that my husband and I used to visit here frequently. It has indeed been a long time." "I recall you," he said. I was so relieved that I couldn't help but smile. "Would you please get me a mixed platter of grilled chicken and a beer?" I inquired. As usual, the proprietor, a man of few words, nodded. When Michael turned 18, I pulled out my cell phone and, as I sipped the cold beer and enjoyed the grilled chicken, the screensaver displayed a picture of the two of us. I wished we were closer as a family. and I looked dapper in the slim suit we had chosen together. The beer took the day's weariness and swept down my throat. Is it possible for me to move out tomorrow? I looked for moving companies and found one for the work the following day as I considered my options. I have saved 2 businesses to my bookmarks after researching rubbish buyers. My mind seemed to be totally clean after changing the screensaver on my phone. The grilled chicken and beer were delicious. When I came home, I made the decision to consider everything. I was called from behind as I was leaving the tavern. A young tavern waitress was sprinting in my direction. "Are you Mrs. Thompson, please?" "I saw your phone's screensaver," she remarked. She revealed my identity in a shocking way. My husband and one of their employees were having an affair. She promised to keep me updated and we exchanged contact details. The things my mother-in-law said seemed to be accurate. Rather than melancholy, I felt a furious rage. It was time to face this directly. I decided to move out that day and scheduled a moving company appointment. I didn't have to honor my husband anymore if it wasn't a conspiracy, and Michael and my mother-in-law were actually participating. I packed my things until midnight on my way home. I immediately informed the moving firm that I was going, and they showed up on schedule. They removed everything I had purchased per my instruction, removing any evidence of my existence. Despite my mother-in-law's worry, I remained determined. Everything I purchased is going with me. "Tomorrow you can begin a whole new life," I said, holding back a chuckle. Despite her objections, I went ahead and had everything removed. Despite loudly complaining to the movers, my mother-in-law was powerless to stop it. Her old dresser from before the marriage and mountains of baby stuff were the only things remaining in the house. "All right, I'll see you later. Enjoy your life with Simon Michael and his family," I said, leaving her speechless. There should be no trace of me left. I left the room after setting the keys on the table. I chose to spend some time with a single co-worker while the movers held on to my belongings. I slept well that night because I felt like I was finished. My hubby finally got back to me a week later. I pondered whether he and that other woman were plotting. The young woman from the tavern called me while my husband was taking his time. "I'll send it to you because I got a good shot." The picture shows my spouse at the tavern, chit-chatting with an older woman. The young woman must have followed them after they closed, perhaps out of a feeling of fairness. A picture of the two entering a motel was also included. I believed that the infidelity persisted even throughout these periods, and any remaining love I might have had for my spouse vanished. I had the woman's address looked up and asked for her name. My husband called the following day with all the proof of the affair. "Where are you, Anna? Here, too, are Michael and his family. You will return home soon, won't you?" "No, I will not return. I was told to leave by your mother. I've left this place. You're going to take in Michael and his family now?" I was aware. Having run out of money, Michael and his family wanted to stay in our house. According to what I've heard, they've been working part-time jobs after graduating from a technical school. "No, Anna, I want you back. They stated you're off for a while when I went to the drugstore. A spot to crash was found." "Yes, I'm all right." "Thus, don't be concerned about me. I take it that Michael and your mother didn't like me? Without me there, I imagine they're content to have the place to themselves." My husband was stunned by my sarcastic remark. He pretended not to notice that he knew his mother and Michael had never acknowledged me as kin. "Okay, all right, I'll return there once because I have something to say." My spouse's voice was a relieved please in response. For the first time in many days, I went back to the house. Inside were some new appliances and furniture. Sarah and Michael remained seated on the sofa and simply nodded when they saw me. My mother-in-law had a frightful expression on her face as I sat down. The mood was tight, and I was about to finish up and head out when Michael interrupted. "Why are you here? Everything in the house was taken by you? How could a monster achieve that? You've had it easy, and your dad has been there for you." I let out a sigh. "I paid for everything, so I took it all." "You intended to get rid of me completely, didn't you? Isn't that crazy?" My spouse claimed that working part-time at the drugstore would not allow you to finance all of that. He began talking as though he had resigned himself. As I looked at him, "For a while now, Anna and I have been making enough to get by. The items you grabbed ought to belong to both of you. I chose to speak up instead of my mute hubby. Simon's pay fell and his company has been struggling. I've been filling in the gaps for the last 5 years because of this. However, that was insufficient, and I am now responsible for our rent. My mother-in-law gave my husband a startled look. I don't work part-time. I work as a pharmacist part-time, and I get paid well. Now I'm earning more than Simon. My husband turned aside, uncomfortable at what I said. My mother-in-law's eyes were darting wildly back and forth between me and my husband. It's going to be your responsibility to pay the rent, Michael. I take it you'll live here? It's time for you to look after your grandmother after all the assistance she received. Michael's face was astonished as he stared at me. Rent when I abruptly broke the news? What is the cost? He inquired. The amount is $5,600. Since it appears that my time as a mother is finished, good luck. I am no longer under any duty to look after you. Gather yourself. You will shortly become a father. Michael shook his head and mumbled, That isn't feasible. Sarah was the one who spoke up when she heard this. Hold on, $5,600? We were expected to pay for our rent and other living expenses while we were here, for free. I nearly laughed out loud. Sarah, don't worry, you might relocate to a less expensive area. Simon's pay is still respectable. Sarah's expression softened at this. Well, Simon, life may still get difficult with your mistress since I'm leaving you. Sarah finally started crying at that point. My husband was the one in a panic. What? What are you discussing? Sarah answered. Oh, I heard about the new woman from your mother. I suppose it's time for me to stop being a wife as well. My husband must believe there isn't any proof. Yes. I haven't even been out of the house for 10 days. If Mary heard you, wouldn't that pain her? I'll speak with you about that later. My spouse jumped when I said Mary's name, knowing I knew everything. I'll be leaving now, then. Please have a lawyer speak with me more. Simon, Michael, and my spouse remained silent as I picked up my suitcase and got to my feet. At the same time, my mother-in-law got up and slammed her hands on the table. Her voice was too loud for an old woman to shout. What on earth? You are solely to blame for our house's disarray. I became annoyed at once. You were the one who told me to go. You were the one who claimed Simon was seeing someone else. Additionally, you meddled in my connection with Michael. It was all you. A rush of fire swept across my chest. I wished I hadn't held back because of my mother-in-law and had been more proactive in my relationship with Michael. This is not related to Michael. Simon, it's time for you to take charge. He is going through a difficult period. As his wife, you should be there for him and assume family responsibilities. What exactly is she discussing? I would still be happy to support Simon and this house I always believed in and supported if she hadn't called Michael back home and hadn't made any indications about Simon's affair. Where are you, Simon? Why are you still here, Michael? She is solely to blame. My mother-in-law started shaking and her lips formed a line. I hurried out of the room, slipping past the quiet mother-in-law. Simon later consented to the divorce with relative ease. It appears that he was unable to refute the evidence of the affair because of my unwavering resolve. They appeared to have begun the process of leaving the residence shortly after. They never resided with the mother-in-law when Michael and Sarah returned to their apartment. Mary was upset about the alimony and Simon's suggestion that she move in with his mother, but it appears that he is thinking about getting married again. There have been rumors that they are debating whether to put my mother-in-law in a care facility. It's a little depressing to think that her son and grandson are prepared to leave her now, after all the love she gave them. Perhaps her role has come to an end as well. Maybe things would have been different if my mother-in-law had stayed silent back then. If it had just been a simple trip home for the birth, perhaps we might still be living together, trying to make things work. But fate had other plans. Michael sent me an apology letter after the divorce. In it, he expressed his regrets, writing about how he had always wished for more love and attention as a child. He shared how his grandmother's disapproval of me speaking to him had shaped his insecurities. Yet, he also admitted how happy he felt when I showed up to his school functions. His words made me wonder, if I had reached out more, if we had communicated better, could things have turned out differently? Could we have formed a stronger bond? Though our relationship has ended, I quietly wish Michael all the happiness in life. As for me, I've started anew. I've returned to work as a pharmacist and moved into a cozy apartment near my job. It's a fresh beginning, one that feels lighter and more peaceful. I even hired a junk removal service to dispose of the appliances and furniture I brought from my old life. I didn't want any lingering reminders of that chapter. Now, without my mother-in-law constantly harassing me, life feels calm and comforting. For the first time, I've decided to live for my own happiness, not for the approval or joy of others. If you're curious about more heartfelt and inspiring stories, be sure to subscribe to SoraBook. Exciting tales await you in our upcoming